If you have a question for Dr. Donna, please do leave it on my page and I will be happy to answer the question for you. Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Talking with Dr. Donna. This is the summer edition, so we are doing things a little differently. It's just me and myself kind of figuring all of this out. But welcome so much for joining. As you know, you have an appointment every Thursday at 6:30 p.m. with your doctor. Again, our show is about, even in the summer, it's about building what? Generational health, right? Because we want to make sure that successive generations, the generation behind us, the generation ahead of us, that we all are as healthy as possible. And we want to make sure that we are ending the cycle of premature death. Premature death. That means dying before our time. And we know in the Black community that we are doing. We're dying at a higher rate from pretty much everything and anything that we can think of. Every disease, we have the highest incidence, the highest rates of death. And so we want to make sure that on this show, we talk about things to help you prevent early dying and death. So as always, we're live. And so if you have a question tonight, you need to go ahead and put it in the chat. I can see you and I will answer your questions. I see you out there. Hey, Cynthia. Hey, Alicita. Hey, Cherise. Thank you so much for joining. So tonight we're going to do a little bit of talking about kids. And I want to talk about kids and kid safety, how to keep our kids safe and how to keep you safe this summer. And one of the things that we want to keep ourselves safe from is COVID. As you know, coronavirus. What have I been saying? The pandemic is not over. It is not over. So give me a second because I'm going to see if I can actually do what I think I'm going to do, which is to share my screen so that we can get some information, and I'm going to see if I got it together. Not quite yet. Let's pull that up, pull this up. Can you guys still see me? Thumbs up. Help me out there. Can you see me? Hi, Liz. Welcome. We're going to see if we can get our screen to share, and then we can go through our talk today. All right. Let me know. Okay, cannot share my screen. That's okay. We're going to go through this. All right, tonight, let's do COVID is still rising. Yes, Julie, you have got it. COVID is still rising. So we're going to talk about three things of what I want you to know for this week. Three really important things. And what I'm going to do, because I'm not really, you can only see me. Okay, thank you. I am not able to do what I wanted to do, which is to share my screen and give you guys this data. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send it out and actually attach it to this on my YouTube channel so that you will be able to see it and go through it on your own. But for now, we're just going to talk it through. You're going to bear with me. We're going to talk it through, and then I'm going to attach the actual slides once this video completely posts to YouTube, which takes usually about a day or so. All right. So first thing we want to know that we're going to talk about today on your needs to know. Number one thing, if you're not already a subscriber, please go over to my YouTube channel and subscribe, hit subscribe, then hit that bell icon right next to it and let me know, that lets you know every time I go live and every time I have an update. And we're going to be updating every Thursday throughout the summer, just like we normally do with Dr. Donna's Need to Knows, okay? So the first thing is, wow, Julie, your site in San Francisco is at 49%. Wow. That is high. Well, let's talk about COVID. So A lot of us out here are talking about how the pandemic is over. We know the pandemic is not over. We know that positivity rates are rising, which that means the number of people who test positive are rising. And we also know that that's probably underreported, right? Because we are testing and getting those numbers from people who are going to the lab to test. So many of us are testing at home and then not uploading those records to the public health department. So what we're seeing now in terms of the people and the numbers that are testing positive is not the final number because there are so many people testing at home. But of those numbers that we know, people testing in a laboratory, we're seeing in Alameda County up to like a 9% positivity rate. Now, it's kind of hard for you to understand what that might mean if you don't have what we used to be. Well, way back when we were at a positivity rate of like 2%, and then we went up to 3%, then we went up to 5%, and at 6%, we were sort of in a panic. Well, we're at almost 9% right now. And so you might be saying to yourself, well, if we're at 9%, then why are we taking off our masks? Well, I think that's one thing that I've been saying, which is not to take off your mask. Wear your mask. We still need to be wearing our masks. And it's really important. I mean, now we're 2 years into this pandemic, and I go to the store and I still see people wearing their masks right here, covering from their upper, this is called the philtrum, covering this area down underneath their chin, leaving their nose completely exposed. Well, you are allowing one very kind of portal or area of entry for the virus. You're allowing that to be completely open. That's not the proper way to wear your mask. You need to wear your mask, once again, over your nose and your mouth, because you don't want the virus to enter. Now, they did some studies that looked at how does the different types of masks decrease your risk of getting COVID. If someone you're in contact with, someone you're sitting next to, someone that you are, having dinner with or whatever, what is your percent of testing, your rates of testing positive if you're wearing certain types of masks? Now, we have long said cloth masks should not be worn. You should only wear cloth masks if it's your second mask. So you have an N95 mask on or a surgical mask on, and then you're putting a cloth mask over because it's cute or you want a little extra protection. But let's just say you didn't get that memo. You have not been watching Talking with Dr. Donna, so you didn't know. And so you're wearing a cloth mask. Well, it only decreases your risk of getting infection to 56%. Okay, so not bad. It does provide some protection, but not nearly as much as we would look at with the surgical mask, which is lowering your odds by 66%, and then an N95 mask, which decreases your odds by 83%. So what's the best mask for you to wear? If you're outdoors, out and about, being around other people, it's the N95. We've been talking about that, N95. Okay, so we want to make sure that we are wearing the right proper mask in the proper way and that it has a good fit, right? So you might be also saying, well, we've also been talking a lot about vaccines, and we're going to get our second need to know. We're going to talk about hot off the presses, our new vaccines for our children, young children, and a second vaccine has now become available for our adolescents. But in Alameda County, we have been keeping track of the number of people who have gotten sick or from coronavirus, if they've been vaccinated or whether or not they've been unvaccinated. Now, in the very peak of our Omicron, we saw that people who were unvaccinated were like 7 to 8 times more likely to get coronavirus than people who were vaccinated. But as the cases started to low, we saw that graph line start to get closer. So the people who were vaccinated and the people who were unvaccinated had very similar rates in sort of March and April. Well, now we're kind of hitting what we are calling a summer surge, and we're starting to see that separation yet again as booster shots become available and people are getting their boosters and getting their immune system, their soldiers revved back up, ready for battle. we're seeing that difference between people who are vaccinated and people who were unvaccinated start to widen again. And so what's that saying? That's saying if you are not vaccinated, if you've never had your vaccine, that you really need to consider getting a vaccine, because you are at a 7 to 8 times higher risk of getting coronavirus unvaccinated than if you are vaccinated. If you are vaccinated and it has been more than somewhere between 4 and 6 months since you've had your booster, then you want to go get your booster, because that is going to give you added protection. And we know that there's booster shots that are now available again. So for adults, we're on our second booster. You had a primary series of 2 shots, then a booster, and now we're on our second booster. Why do we keep needing to have boosters? Because the virus hasn't left. The pandemic is not over. And so as long as the virus is here, we want to make sure we keep our antibodies up and as strong as possible. And that's why we're needing a booster. Remember, think back, you guys might be saying, oh, the shots are failing. We knew that vaccine wasn't going to work. That's not how it works. We knew when we created that vaccine, I say we like I was in the lab, but we knew as we created the vaccines that we didn't know how long they would last. And remember, we were trying to get a vaccine out to stop the mass deaths that were happening from coronavirus. And so the vaccine was not perfect when it was created, but it did help to curb the number of people who were dying from this virus. And so we know that it doesn't last for years, right? Now we have over 2 years of data, and we're seeing that at about 4 to 6 months, your antibodies start to your soldiers start to get a little weary. They're tired on the battlefield. They're hungry. They're cold. They're tired. So you need to give them a boost. You need to bring in some food, bring in some, nice, comfortable beds for them to rest on so that they can build themselves back up. And that's what our booster shots are doing. So if you haven't gotten your second booster now as an adult, you're over the age of 50, or if you're over the age of 12 and you have some immunocompromised system, your nervous system, right? Is immunocompromised. Your immune system is immunocompromised. It is available for you as well to get a booster shot. Okay. So again, masking is important to continue. Getting vaccines and getting boosters are important. And if you haven't gotten a booster shot, well, you are in luck, because tomorrow at True Vine Ministries, 896 Newton Carey Jr. Way, we are doing vaccines. And you can get vaccine for your children and for yourself, your booster shot from noon until 4 p.m. You can come down and get your vaccine. Okay, so don't say you didn't know where to get it. Tomorrow it's available. Saturday, it will also be available at the same location from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. So we have 2 days of vaccine clinics available for you to bring your child in and get vaccinated, or for you to come in and get your booster shot. Okay, but vaccines and masks save lives. So talking about vaccines, and a lot of you hopefully have heard on the news that we now have vaccine for our little babies from 6 months old up to the age of 5 years. Did not have a vaccine prior to last week's approval. So now we're able to vaccinate our youngest children. And you might say, well, why do we need to vaccinate our youngest children? Well, we need to because over 13 million kids have tested positive for coronavirus. Our children are about 19% of all cases of coronavirus. Now, that's no small number. So 13 million kids who are testing positive for coronavirus, we want to make sure that we can protect them if possible. Just last week, you know how many kids tested positive for COVID? I'm going to let you guess. Let's see. Guess. Tell me what you think about how many kids tested positive last week for coronavirus. 87,000 kids. Over 87,000 kids tested positive for coronavirus just last week. That's a lot of kids. Now, you might be thinking, well, isn't everybody going to get coronavirus? Can't we just go ahead and get it and let our kids get it like we did chickenpox? Somebody has coronavirus. Let's just take all of our kids over to their house, drop them down, let them cough and hack on each other and let our kids get coronavirus. No, because remember, now we've been talking about this a long time, folks. Remember, COVID and coronavirus is a ratchet virus. It does all sorts of nasty things. We know that it increases the risk of diabetes. It can cause, we now know, liver disease to the point where they need a liver transplant. So hepatitis is what we consider a part of long COVID. For men, it messes with their erectile function. It also can cause long COVID in terms of fogginess and haziness and not being able to focus or concentrate, causing long-term fatigue where you're just tired all of the time. Now imagine as a 60-year-old, if you have long COVID, you can tolerate it. You're old enough to kind of figure it out. Imagine if you're an 11-month-old baby and you've got COVID and you have to deal with the symptoms of long COVID. Now that hits a little differently, right? So that's why it's important for us to try to protect our kids. Our kids, thankfully, do not get hospitalized or die at the same rates as our adults. So that's good news. But the fact that they can still catch this virus and that they can have long-term impacts to their health from this virus at such an early age is why you don't want to just be willy-nilly out there with your kids and coronavirus. You want to protect them. There are now 2 vaccines available for our babies from 6 months up to 5 years. And I'm going to spend some time specifically on the 2 vaccines next week. But today, I just want to give you the sort of basic framework of the vaccines, and we're going to dig deep into the vaccines next week. But for now, know that there's 2 vaccines. There's the Pfizer shot, and you can, for kids, you might need 2 or 3 shots depending on your age. And we're going to get into that a little bit more detail next week. Then there's also Moderna has come out. Now, Moderna, you only need 2 shots. And then just today, the CDC said that Moderna is not only approved for 6 months to 5 years, that age we've been waiting for, but we've also been waiting for Moderna to come out with the 6-year to 17-year-old vaccine. And that vaccine got approved today. So now Moderna is available for 6 months all the way through adults, and Pfizer is available from 6 months all the way up into adults. So now we've got 2 vaccines that are spanning all of the ages starting at 6 months that is available. So if you have young children, I really want to encourage you to first and foremost have a conversation with your child's doctor to talk about whether or not the vaccine is right for your child, and to then schedule your appointment if it's right for your child to get that vaccine. All right, so I'm going to pause there for a moment because I've talked a lot, and I'm going to make sure that see if there's any questions that you have out there about the vaccines, about the virus, about what we're doing. Let's see. Brain fog is real. Yes, it is. All right. Is the waiting period for post-virus vaccination the same for children as it was for adults? Great question. So remember when we were talking about if you actually get coronavirus, when should you then get a booster or your shot? Like how long should you wait? And we thought at that point that the magic number was about 3 months. That what's called your natural immunity, which is what you get once you've had a particular virus. Your body is fighting off a particular virus, and then your antibodies learn that particular virus from actually being infected. That's called natural immunity. What vaccines do is to produce kind of like a fake immunity, right? A pseudo parallel to what your body does naturally. We sort of induce that and trick your body into doing that same response in your vaccine. Okay, so that's the difference between natural immunity and vaccine-induced immunity. If you get the virus, then we think that you have about 3 months that your natural immunity is protecting you so that you don't actually need to get the vaccine during that time. Well, now that we know we have these other variants out there, there's a lot of other things to take into consideration. I don't think I would recommend waiting that full 3 months like we thought in the very beginning, but I would probably say at least a month, if not 2 months. And that is the same for adults or for children with that natural immunity and waiting until you get the booster shot. So great question. So I would wait at least a month and probably no more than 2 months in order to get your child vaccinated if your child has coronavirus. All right. Is herd immunity even still a consideration? Wow, that is a really, you're talking with Dr. Donna, folks out there are super smart. That is a great question. Whether or not herd immunity is still something that we're trying to get to. If you remember at the very beginning of this virus, we wanted herd immunity because we thought that if everybody got vaccinated, right, and those few people who didn't get vaccinated would be covered by all of us who got vaccinated. Well, we never quite reached that threshold of 75 to 80% of the population getting vaccinated. We're not quite there. And so we never reached herd immunity. And as we have been trying to attain herd immunity, all of these different variants have popped up. So yeah, the thought of us reaching herd immunity is still desirable, but whether or not we're really going to get there, we're not sure. I'm hoping that as more information about vaccines and more people become comfortable, that they will get vaccinated and we can at least bump up our rate of vaccination. But I don't know. So yes, we still want to get herd immunity, but whether we get there or not is a different question. All right. Is the home test accurate? Most are negative results. Yes, you are right. The home tests are not as sensitive, which means that you need to have a pretty high viral load, like enough virus in your body to turn that home test positive. And so, yes, a lot of people are testing negative and actually have the disease. What that is saying, though, with a negative test at home, it is giving some good news, right? Because it means that you're probably not as infectious, right? Because you're not turning the test positive, which means you don't have a lot of virus in your body. And so when you test negative for that home test, and then you might go to the lab and you test positive at the lab, that's because the lab tests are a lot more sensitive. They're able to pick up the virus in a way in which the home tests are not. So I use the home test to, of course, if there's someone in the household who has symptoms, I definitely use the home test, because if it's positive, then we know they have it, right? But if it's negative, it doesn't mean that they don't have it. It means that the virus has not replicated enough in the body to make the test turn positive. But so you test again. And then if they're still negative, but they have symptoms, then you sort of have to go into sort of common sense mode, right? And say, you know what? This test may be negative, but you're coughing, you have a headache, you have a sore throat. Let's go to a lab and get a laboratory test, and let's confirm whether or not you're truly positive. So that's how I would recommend taking the home test. And then if you do test positive, then what I would do is come back home. It's been a couple of days, test with a home test, because if that home test is also positive, you can use your home test to determine when you have very low rates of the virus in your body. So you can determine when it's okay to come out of quarantine. If it's been less than, the 10 days, you can determine how kind of infectious you are. So it does have a place of use, our home test. But if you have symptoms, you test negative, and you really want to be sure, you really want to go to the lab and get that lab test to really confirm. All right. Let's see if I got all of the questions out there. Checking in. All right. Looks like I got all of the questions. All right. So finally, let's go then to our third tip. So this is my tip of the week, and it's about hydration. And we have had really weird weather lately. It's been really hot, and then it cools down. And I understand this weekend we're going to have kind of another cooling phase. But we're in summer, and it's going to get hot. So I want to give you some tips about making sure that you're hydrated, particularly for your children, and particularly if they are active and involved in sports and they're outdoors running around or you're hiking. So the benefits of being hydrated is that it really helps with your heart. So it gives to increase how your heart works and keeps it healthy. It helps your joints and your muscles, right? So our whole bodies are, we're like 70% water, which means that the more, the water that we lose just day to day, breathing, walking, talking, all of that takes out water from our bodies. So we need to replace it. And if it's hot, we have to replace it at even more than regular. But it helps your joints and it helps your muscles so that you actually can not get cramps, right? So if you've ever walked and you're like, oh, I got a cramp in my calf muscle, more water would help with that. Or if you feel really stiff in the morning, more water will help with that. It also helps to prevent acne and wrinkles. Now, acne for our younger folks, but us adults, we get acne too, and decreasing your wrinkles. So keeps your skin plump, right? So it keeps the elasticity in your skin, and that's what causes wrinkles when you start to lose that elasticity. But if you drink lots of water, it can help keep your face plump and help to have really great skin. And who doesn't want great skin, especially in the summer when you're showing a little bit more skin? And then it also helps to kind of regulate and cleanse your body. So it helps to make sure that you have nice, normal, and regular bowel movements, right? We talk about that. Dr. Peterson would be happy that we're talking about bowel movements. So making sure we stay hydrated, it helps. Lots of water helps. Now, you might think that if you're out, that you should just only do water. But if you're outdoors and you're sweating, so you are hiking or you are playing a sport for your kids, it's also important that you give them some electrolytes back into their body. So that's why you drink things like those electrolyte waters or electrolyte drinks. Those is putting salt back into your body. So when you sweat, you lose salt. So giving your body some of that salt back is not the same as just salting your food for no reason. The reason you're putting salt into your body is because you've lost salt because you've been sweating. So you want to put some electrolytes back into your body. So getting those electrolyte water or electrolyte juices, it's going to be really important if you're outside and you're sweating. It's also important to think about swimming. Now, when you think about your swimming, you say, oh, we don't need to be hydrated. They're in the water. But they're in the water with the lower part of their body in the water, but the upper part of your body out and exposed to the sun. And you actually can lose lots of salt by being in the sun, even in the swimming pool. So particularly if you're swimming in the swimming pool, in the lake, make sure that you get your kids out regularly and get them to drink water. If you're noticing that they're sweating, then you also want to, again, add in some electrolytes. So it's really important. And as we talk about swimming and swim safety, do you know that drowning is the leading cause of death in our kids from ages 1 to 4? It's the top cause of death in teens. Drownings. So if you are in the water, make sure that your children have on a life vest if you're in open water or you're in a boat or you're in a sailboat or you're kayaking, anything where it's open water. Even if you think your kids are the strongest swimmer or you're the strongest swimmer, it's important to wear a life vest, because anything can happen. You can hit your head, you can fall overboard and lose kind of your orientation. You want to be able to have that extra layer of protection. So you want to wear a life vest, particularly if you're in open water. And of course, watching your young kids around swimming pools. So if they have a swimming pool, making sure that you're gated, that can decrease the risk of deaths from drowning by like 50%, just by having a gate around the pool and keeping that gate closed and locked and away from small children, right? So, bicycle safety, wearing a helmet for your kids, wear a helmet, wear wrist guards. If you're an adult and you want to try some roller skating, you haven't roller skated in 30 years, but now you want to take it up, wear some wrist guards. You know how many people we see coming in to the emergency room with broken wrists or broken elbows from trying to be active again? Get out there, fine, be active, but protect yourself. Helmet is the most important. If you've got anything on wheels, you want to wear a helmet. And also wrist guards and elbow guards to think about it. Protect these little older bones that we have, folks. It's time to be real. We got older bones. All right. So we've talked about COVID, wearing our masks, getting our vaccines up to date. We have talked about the new vaccines that are available for children. And we've talked about some summer safety and staying hydrated. So make sure you amplify these messages. Make sure you share this video with people that are in your family and your friends so that you can make sure that everybody has the amount of knowledge that you have. Let's see. Last question. Is it okay to have a shot and you don't know if you have COVID? Yes, it won't do anything. It could potentially make you a little bit sicker, because if you remember the side effects of the vaccine feel very much like when you have COVID. So you get fatigued. Sometimes you get a headache. So it might make your symptoms worse. But in terms of doing something to your body, it's better to test first, of course. If you test negative and you don't have any symptoms, I would say go ahead and get your vaccine. If you're on the fence, you're not sure if you have COVID, I would wait, get tested again by a laboratory. If the laboratory confirms that you're negative for COVID, I would go ahead and get the vaccine. Okay? All right. Well, thank you so much again for watching Talking with Dr. Donna every Thursday, 6:30 p.m. You have an appointment with the doctor. We're going to take this through the summer. We have some summer sessions that's a little different, but the information is still going to be as good. So thanks for watching, and I will see you next Thursday. Take care of yourselves. Remember, vaccine clinics tomorrow and Saturday. If you haven't been vaccinated, 896 Newton Carey Jr. Way. Come and get your vaccine. All right, take care of yourselves. If you have a question for Dr. Donna, please do leave it on my page and I will be happy to answer the question for you.